it was a dreamy experience. I don't know if that's because it was all female led, but I can tell you that a bunch of moms got together and got shit done and made this thing happen, and everybody went home for dinner at night, and it was pretty great.
That's what happened. A bunch of moms got shit done.
The vibes are correct, you know?
Yeah.
I'm a big sister, and we're both boy moms, but my kids are a little older, so I've been doing it a little longer. So I also got to, like, you know, impart some helpful tips, and so it felt sisterly, like, from jump, you know?
Yes, and I'm an older sister too, but I don't actually have sisters. And also in my friend group, which is like really tight group of girls, I am the youngest. So for me, this is all very easy and normal,
Yeah.
right?
It's the right dynamic.
Telling me what to do, how to do it, and how to do it. That's what happens in my friend group. So whenever she says anything like that, I'm like, yes, I will do that. Correct.
I was sort of amazed at how much of my childhood it brought up for me. My dad also, I have two sisters, Sarah and Rebecca, and I also have a baby brother. The showrunners came to me, they said a theme of the show was how kids growing up in the same house can get different versions of their parents. And for sure that happened in my family because I'm 11 years apart from my baby brother. Like, my parents were completely different by the time they were raising him as a baby, you know? And so I really related to that. My dad also served in Vietnam. And so that, I knew what that was to come home to, and just what was talked about, what was not talked about, and how hard it was to come home from there for him. So it's just really interesting, the long tail that had in our family. And just a sense also of, like, loyalty and sense of place. Like, I'm from a small town. I grew up hanging out in the woods a lot. Like, all of that I felt connected to all those things. First of all, I loved that exposition gets to come out in a place where it's supposed to come out in real life. It feels very relatable. It's a place where sharing happens. And so I get to say a lot of my internal truths out loud in the show, which is a real gift for a character because not everybody has that sounding board, gets to do that. And I'm a huge fan of AA. I think it's an incredible program. I have friends and family that have really improved their lives working the steps, and I've played other characters in other things who've dealt with sobriety. So I've had access to that incredible organization and to Al-Anon, and I can't say enough great things. And I really felt a responsibility to represent those shares, those people, that world in a really authentic way.
Chloe's a person who, she wears a mask, I guess, a lot of her life. She is this kind of public, outward facing persona, and she's got this big fancy job. She's very successful. She has this sort of idyllic looking, beautiful kind of elite lifestyle. She's really holding a lot of pain and grief and shame and secrets, and also truths that she believes to be true that she will eventually find out maybe are not exactly what she thought they were. A lot of betrayal and upheaval that she's going to be dealing with. I connect with her on a lot of levels. I mean, I really get what it's like to wear kind of, a protective mask and sort of put on a bit of a facade of like this, having a perfect life and having a great career and all this stuff. I think even growing up in the business, that when we were growing up in it, we were really taught to do that. That was really part of the culture, is you were media trained and you kind of presented one way and you kind of kept your personal life to yourself. Now we don't do that anymore, right? That's like the exact opposite of what everybody is doing now. But I did that for a long time. And so I don't exactly connect with the reality that she finds herself in, but I understand how to be two things. I understand how to like turn it on, and then privately it's something different, and hide vulnerability and to sort of mask anything that might be looked at as a threat or a failure in some way. Chloe is trying to exist in this really elite society, and if you're not from there and people don't trust you, like you're not, you're like not one of them, you're an outsider, and she can't have that. She's worked her way up, she's built trust with people in her community and people in her business and her world, and she can't let that fall apart. So I think that's really interesting to mess around with, psychologically. And I understand, I can parallel a little bit of that experience in my life.
It was a huge sort of conversation we had amongst all of us about what were the moments of connection and togetherness, and when were they working, not necessarily even at odds, but like with their own agendas, and how and when did they connect? But I mean, Nikki's a fish out of water. I enter Chloe's world, so like I show up and I'm trying to figure out what are the rules. But like she says, I am this deep vulnerability for her because I am the proof that everything she has said she is not necessarily true. And yeah. I'm like, I can out it all. And she has to trust me, and I have to earn the trust that I'm not going to, right? And I don't know that that dynamic is really what's at play. It's like, do they trust each other to not ruin the good thing that they got going on? Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't trust Nikki. I mean, we had a lot of fun with, Nikki really getting to poke at her world, right? You walk into that apartment and it's pristine and it's clean and it's beautiful. And the very first thing Nikki does is like make a giant mess and go, I'll clean it up, God, Like I know what she needs is she needs it to be orderly. Mm-hmm. And I don't need that and I don't care about it. And so I'm only doing it for her. I found when we got to really because we're both putting up these huge walls for a couple episodes, when we finally rode in the car and we're really vulnerable and you break down crying and you're like, I'm really scared. And it's the first moment where like, okay, I get to be a big sister right now. There is not a wall between us. She's let down, like she's shown, she's asking for some reassurance. And I think it feels so good to Nikki to be able to sister her in that moment.
It was like spouts out of nowhere, right? Like, and it kind of happens in the other sequence where there's some major violence. But I feel like that's kind of how those things happen, right? Where it's something, and then before you know it, like boom, something big happens. So how did we approach it? I mean, I think we walked through it really step by step. Corey knew what he was doing. I knew what I was doing. We knew how to protect each other and keep each other safe. And once that trust is there, and once that safety, of like, oh, I know he's going to help me and keep me safe. And then you can kind of just let it go and like really, really explore how far does it go and what would happen? What could possibly happen in a hot, ticket moment like that. It's definitely an intense experience for sure, like anytime you're exploring that kind of thing. It was also a really important moment because you're finally getting to see why she's keeping so many secrets, because this coming out, this being exposed in some way, it's the end of her career. Like nobody trusts this woman ever again. No one's going to listen to her, care about her books, or care about her standing up in court for people. Like she's a liar. She's a faker. She's a fraud. So it's a painful thing, I think it's really painful for her to go through that and then literally walk away from it and go, why do I let myself? Why? I am that person that, she spends so long, proving to people that she's just not that person. It's like such a fraud. And I can't even imagine how like awful that would feel,
These are two women who society deems villainous. There's a bad mom who loses her kid. Like, that is just, you're written off. You that shame, that scarlet letter, that's with you forever. And then on the other side, Chloe is this very ambitious, social climbing, leader who's just got a target on her to just take her down, right? Like, we don't love to see women, like, it's a vulnerable place to get to the top. And I love that they shared, like, they have so much shame that they're sharing, and that they're both targets that society writ large is actually their common enemy in a way. And they're both just fighting, clawing their way, like, through a system that wants to dispose of them. And I found that really powerful to play against. This is based on a book written by a woman. It was adapted by women. It's about women. It stars women.
Yep.
It kind of was what it was the whole time. I just to say, like, there was no sort of grand plan, like, let's go represent how it can be done in our business. But of course, we love that it was done this way, and we are excited that we were a part of it.
And my last question is, what do you think you've both taken away from the experience of making this?
A friend in Jessica Biel.
A friend forever. Truly. Truly.
Tickets to Justin Timberlake.
Tickets to Justin's shows. At one very nice, cool camp in Massachusetts, if we need to get in for kids.
Yep.
I think truly, like, a lot of friends that I think we'll have for a long time and be able to hopefully collaborate with again.